This amp is a Vox AC30C, and the amp in the background on the left is a Marshall JVM. And on a couple of the screws on the rear panel of this Vox, the really cool looking black oxide screws have stripped threads because they're made of really crappy metal. And on that Marshall, a couple of the screws holding the chassis in place have the same problem, where someone inserts it wrong just one time, turns it wrong, and the whole thread strips. And so what I do, whenever possible, is I take out these cool looking black oxide pot metal screws, and I put in some boring old stainless screws. And these boring old stainless screws are very unlikely to strip or get bent, or all the things that are common with the black oxide cheap screws with soft metal. But the issue is when you have a stainless steel screw, that can actually be a harder grade steel than the receiver, than the insert or whatever threaded device is in there to receive the screw. So this is not a job for a power tool unless you have started it by hand and you know that you're not going to have any issues. So whenever possible, I will do this by hand, or I will start it by hand, do it 95% of the way with a power screwdriver set to lowest torque, and then finish by hand. Now, on this number 6 truss, I used a number 3 Phillips head. That matches that. If I use a number 2 bit on that, it doesn't match, and it wiggles in there, and that's how you get stripped Phillips heads. So I'm going to replace every screw on the rear panel of this AC30 with high quality steel. And I'm going to do the 4 screws that hold the chassis to the cabinet on that Marshall JVM. And this is very commonplace stuff. I do an awful lot of this, and it's sad that it's necessary because I know what I pay for these screws in small quantities as an individual. It's not much. A large company, given the volumes of screws and other hardware that they buy, could really get a much higher quality amp for probably a few pennies more per amp. And they don't, because all those pennies add up, and some accountant somewhere got a raise and went on vacation because they found a way to screw us. Pun intended.